the unforgiving North African desert of World War II, where the sun scorched the earth by day and the cold hardened metal by night, survival depended on far more than avoiding gunfire. In that vast ocean of sand, the deadliest enemy was often invisible. It was Dirst. Soldiers fought not only opposing armies, but the relentless sun that seemed determined to drain every drop of life from their bodies. Temperatures soared past 50 degrees Celsius, hot enough to warp metal and blister skin. One miscalculation, one lost moment of caution, and a man could collapse from dehydration long before a bullet ever reached him. Yet in those merciless conditions, soldiers British, German, Australian, Italian, and all who marched across the Sahara discovered a simple trick that kept their canteens cool for days. No ice, no machines, just basic materials any camp could spare. A forgotten desert hack, born from observation, necessity, and the timeless physics of survival. A technique so effective that modern desert explorers and survivalists still rely on it today. During the bitter clashes between the British 8th Army and Romulus Afrika Corps, commanders quickly learned that water was as vital as ammunition. A single soldier needed at least a gallon a day just to function in the heat. But metal canteens, standard issue at the time, absorbed the desert sun like ovens. By midday, the water inside was nearly boiling, tasting more like soup than something meant to sustain life. Shade was rare. Plastic didn't exist, and the desert gave no mercy. But then the armies noticed something. The Bedouin tribes who had lived in the desert for centuries carried water that stayed refreshingly cool, even under the most brutal heat. The secret wasn't magic, it was method. The Bedouins wrapped their water skins in damp cloth, letting the dry desert wind pull moisture outward. As the water evaporated, it stole heat from the skin beneath it, cooling the liquid inside. Nature's own refrigerator, powered by nothing but wind and physics. Soldiers didn't take long to adapt the trick to their own gear. They soaked their canvas bottle covers in water, slid them over their canteens, and let the desert wind do the rest. Slowly, consistently, the evaporation pulled heat away from the metal. Wheaten and Awur. Hot water became cool again. Within a day, it stayed pleasantly drinkable, even soothing. Some diaries from tank crews describe pouring water into their mugs and being shocked at how noticeably cooler it felt than the scorching air surrounding them. The method worked even better when the canteen hung from the side of a moving jeep, or outside a tent where every breeze could pass over it. The more wind, the faster the evaporation, and the cooler the water became. German troops used felt or wool wraps instead of canvas, but the principle was identical. They even carried small amounts of clean water reserved specifically for keeping their canteen covers wet, because in the desert, a cool drink wasn't a comfort. It was morale, it was clarity, it was life. What made this desert hack so brilliant was its simplicity. It didn't try to defy the environment, it worked with it. The same dryness that made dehydration so deadly was also what made evaporative cooling possible. The lower the humidity, the faster the cooling effect. Soldiers learned to re-wet their covers whenever they could. A handful of dew in the early morning, sweat wrung from a shirt, or a splash of water rationed carefully. They used every drop wisely. They learned to shield their canteens in shade during rest stops, preserving the cooling effect, then expose them to airflow again as soon as they marched. This wasn't theory, it was survival proven in battle conditions. Letters and journals from the Western Desert Campaign describe the emotional lift that came with a drink of cool water after hours of blistering sun. When the heat felt endless, that small relief strengthened resolve. It brought men back to themselves, and the technique didn't vanish with the war. Today's survivalists still use the same principle. A metal canteen wrapped in a wet cloth, hung in the open air. Hunters soak wool socks to keep their bottles cool. Hikers wrap bandanas around metal flasks. Modern militaries still issue canvas-covered water bottles in dry theaters of operation. All because a simple principle discovered long before modern cooling systems still works flawlessly. The desert canteen hack is more than a wartime trick, it's a lesson in survival thinking. The soldiers didn't invent new tools. They observed the environment, watched the locals, understood how nature behaves, and adapted accordingly. That mindset using the world around you instead of fighting it is one of the oldest and most powerful survival principles that exists. The same understanding can cool water in the desert, preserve food in sub-zero cold, or purify water in a jungle. Survival isn't about gear. It's about understanding. Long before hydration bladders, insulated bottles, and modern cooling systems, this simple method kept men alive in one of the most unforgiving landscapes on Earth. It's a piece of forgotten wartime wisdom that still matters, because heat, thirst, and danger haven't changed, even if the world around us has. So the next time you lift a water bottle on a hot day, think of those soldiers marching across the desert trusting nothing but a strip of wet canvas to protect them from the deadly heat. Their ingenuity still speaks to us, reminding us that true survival knowledge never expires. If you want more stories uncovering forgotten skills, hidden tools, and the ingenious tricks of the past, subscribe to In the Beginning and share this with others who know that history isn't just something to study, it as something to learn from.